Got a new show if you guys didn't catch it last week, Ozzie and Krausey show. Joe Kraus and Bill Osborne, 7 to 9 right here on 97.3. Always good to cross-promote, give them a little pop, and they did a really nice job last week talking football. I believe you can talk football 365, but Bill's kind enough to join us for a couple moments. How are you, Bill?
All right, guys. What's going on?
Everything is good. We were talking a little football in the 12 o'clock hour. Congrats on the time slot right here from 7 to 9 with you and Joe. I caught the show last week. Good job. I enjoyed it. Guys talking a lot of football, obviously, a lot of Eagles. I kind of asked you right off the bat, what were your initial thoughts of some of the moves that the Eagles made in the offseason?
I like them. I think that you have to factor a lot of things in when you're making moves. The chemistry of the team, how it affects your cap, how it affects the schemes that you're going to be using, how it affects your depth chart. There's a lot of things that you need to address. And sometimes, us as fans, we're sitting back there like, especially with the draft, I think it's crazy sometimes when teams try and outsmart everybody. It's like there's something right there in front of you, and it's like everybody knows this is the guy to take, but they're going to try and they're going to think they're smarter than everybody, and a lot of those don't work. And I think in this situation here with the Eagles in the offseason, I think there were some needs that they needed to address. And when you do that, there's ways you can do it. Obviously, trades, free agency, the draft, and they've been using all of those to try and upgrade their team. And I think for fans, that's what you want. You want to see a team and an ownership group that wants to win, and not 5 years from now. Us Philly fans and South Jersey fans, we want to win like yesterday. So if you can help us do that, then we're okay with that. Yeah,
and for the listening audience too, if you recognize the voice and the name Bill Osborne, excellent athlete down here and down the short points in Wildwood Crest, Wildwood High School. I know you played at Pitt, played a little bit in the NFL, Barcelona Dragons as well, AFL. Now you were a scout for a couple years with the Chiefs? Yes, I scouted for the Kansas City Chiefs. And what years were those, Bill?
That was 92 and 93, or 93, 94. So it was right on it was right when Joe Montana was coming into the Chiefs with Marcus Allen. So I was there the year before that and that year up to it. And Terry Bradway, who was a Marmora resident right there in South Jersey, he and I have been friends forever. And he helped me get the job with Carl Peterson, who was the GM at the time. And Marty Schottenheimer was the head coach, and Marty's a Pitt guy, and that's where I went to school, and Lynn Stiles. So that was the group that I went out there and worked for, and it was a great time. And my area at the time was like around the Arrowhead Stadium in the Big 8. So not many people in their first draft ever get the pick, and it was from my school, and it was a guy by the name of Will Shields.
Yeah, sure.
Who. You guys may remember that
career.
name. He was an all-pro lineman, and he may actually become a Hall of Famer one day. But
should be.
It was my pick that year. I mean, not my pick, but it was my school, and I had a first-rounder, and he was a good player. So it was a great experience.
Now, was Bill Moss on that team?
Billy Bob was there, yes, another Pitt guy. He and I were good friends and remain friends.
Wow. So you got the back ends of Montana and Allen, which is funny because everyone remembers, Allen was basically that cast off, and then still arguably one of the greatest short yardage backs ever, and came on and certainly helped Kansas City. And then it's tough. Let me ask you this: is it tough when you see guys like that? It's not like. When you had O.J. Simpson finishing up with the Rams, or Unitas with the Chargers, or Franco Harris in Seattle, or Namath with the Rams as well, and you see a guy like Montana and Allen, and you look at the uniform and you say, man, it takes a minute or two to just see if it fits.
You know what, Rich? You're exactly right. And here's the deal, too. Like, even with Joe, like, when he came in, like, at the time I was a young guy, and I was there in Arrowhead, and whenever they would bring somebody in to work out, since my office was at Arrowhead, I would run the workout. So if it was a punter, I would catch the kicks. If it was a receiver, I would throw the ball. If it was a quarterback, whatever. So it was Joe Montana coming in, and it was a little bit out of my pay grade. So Carl and Lamar Hunt. So we kind of flew him in under the secrecy and under the guise of it was some guy, but we did it at nighttime. And all of a sudden, I get a phone call in my office, and it's Coach Schottenheimer. And he's like, "Hey, Ozzie, what are you doing?" I said, "Just watching film, Coach." He goes, "Can you do me a favor? Can you meet me down in the indoor facility? We got to work out some guy, and I just want to see if you can run some routes for him." So I'm like, Sure, Coach, I'll be down there, knowing that Montana was in town. So I go down there and I work them out, and I'm out running routes. And this is a classic story. So I'm running the deep routes. The intermediate routes and the stationary routes are Paul Hackett's assistant, like a GA at the time, by the name of Mike McCarthy.
Yep.
If that name rings a bell, he's the head Super Bowl coach at the Green Bay Packers. So the next day, I come into my office, and I have back in the day, it was a VHS tape.
Yeah, sure.
To Ozzie, show this to your grandkids one day. Love the film crew. And it was the workout with me and Mike McCarthy working out Joe Montana.
That's crazy.
And to make matter, I'll tell you one final part of that story is that I'm leaving Kansas City and I'm coming back to work for the Giants. And Joe is on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And he had the 4 rings, and it said Kansas City, here I come.
Yeah.
And I don't really ask for autographs, but it's Joe Montana. So I got I think I got 3 autographs in my lifetime. Mike Schmidt, George Brett, and I was getting Joe's. So I go to Joe. I say, "Hey, Joe, can you sign this for me?" He goes, "Well, what do you want me to say?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Ozzie, what do you want me to say?" I said, "Joe, whatever. Just say, thank you or whatever." He puts on there, "To Ozzie, you have great hands. Thanks for getting me the job, Joe." So, needless to say, I have that posted up on my wall, and it was obviously a memorable time, and it was classic, and a time that I'll never forget. And for a kid from South Jersey,
sure,
at Wildwood Crest, New Jersey, coming from a school that I think maybe won 7 games total in my entire 4 years playing quarterback, it was quite the thrill.
It's funny, too, and again, Bill Osborne joining us for a couple moments. Ozzie and Krausey show started last week right here on 97.3 ESPN FM, 7 to 9. Definitely give it a listen. Everyone talks South Jersey, and I think people forget. I'm not even going back to like the Bubba Harris or the Larry Milbournes. South Jersey has been a breeding ground for players in the NFL. I mean, obviously you go back to the Friars, you go back to the Franco Harris, you go back to the Irv Smith. So I think sometimes when people look at South Jersey, they kind of forget that they've sprouted so many players that have played in the NFL and have gone on to have some solid careers, Hall of Fame careers.
You're exactly right. And it's funny because when people say to me, about my career, like, I'm not in the. It's odd. It's weird, but I was picked as athlete of the decade in the 1980s by the Atlantic City Press, and I made the all-decade football team and the all-decade baseball team. But in Jersey, I'm in the basketball Hall of Fame. I'm not in the football Hall of Fame, and it's crazy because when I go to the Maxwell Club and I see all the people, and I was just at Rutgers University yesterday with my son, and I was talking to the head coach, and one of the things I was telling my son on the way up was, if New Jersey if Rutgers could just keep some of the players in their area at home, that would be a powerhouse. And it just makes your point, very well. It's a great point because you could literally start an All-American / All-Pro / Hall of Fame team in every position, and probably 2 depth charts on players from New Jersey that have gone on and been, great players in the NFL. It's amazing when you start looking at the guys. It really is.
When you look at the NFL right now, and let's bring it back to the NFC East with the Eagles, and we saw what Dallas was able to do last year. I mean, look, you know this, right? You have that mammoth offensive line in a ground game. That helps any rookie quarterback, let alone any quarterback out. You've got Washington where they've had issues with their GM. I don't know if they're still fully sold, even though I like the quarterback in Kirk Cousins. You've got to make up for the loss of Garcon and Jackson. You've got the Giants where as long as you have Eli, you've got a puncher's chance. The issue is, and again, you can kind of speak a little more to this. I say this on the air a lot. With that offense and that offensive line, they try to pass first to set up the run as opposed to run to try to set up the pass. So they've got question marks. You look at the Eagles now, kind of how do you handicap the NFC East? Who would right now early on you look on paper and say they should be the favorite?
I think you got to go with the Cowboys. I think just because of their, they're just solid, in both sides of the ball. I think their offensive line is unbelievable, and they have youth at a lot of the skilled positions and proven youth, in their tailback and their wide receiver core and their tight end. And although he's not youth, but he's all pro and their quarterback. And you line that's pretty darn good. And then you go up and you put up against a defensive front seven that is pretty darn good and can get to the passer, which is very key. That's why I put them number one. And to that point, it's why I put the Giants at number two, because you have a bona fide, steady guy at the QB position, a pretty decent running game. You got some skilled players on the outside that makes every DB and defensive back coach scared. And then they have a really good, pretty good defense, and they got some edge rushers that can get home. So I put them at number two. And then, the Redskins is a team that always kind of confuses me, but somewhere there, the Eagles, Redskins, in my opinion, would be, flip a coin.
Yeah, I just look on paper. I think no matter what, it's tough to win 11 straight, let alone 4 or 5. It's very hard to win in the NFL each and every Sunday. The losses stick and just kill these head coaches. So you look at the Cowboys, I think you get a little more film on these guys. I'm interested to see if they try to play the run. Defenses play the run a little more and then put a little more pressure on Prescott, because we saw early on it was a little more dink and dunk. Then they let him open up. The Giants, my concern is this. You look at what they did defensively, they'll be a top 5 defense again, no doubt. It took them about a month or so to get acclimated, but we saw them come on. But for all the weapons they had on offense, if you cannot run the football, right, and you know this, right? If you can't run the football in deep November, December, in these when the weather starts to get nasty out there, especially these divisional games, you can't even get into a 4-minute offense. So now all of a sudden, I don't care if it's Eli or if it's Montana back there. You go first down and you get stuffed for a 2-yard loss. Now you're second and long. The defense is pinning their ears back. Then you get that third and long, because the Giants, if you get a second and short, you can be more creative on second down. You can do anything you want. That's not how their offense is. It's almost like force feed it to Beckham and hope he breaks one.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And until they can get a running game, and I think that's why, they're going to put more pressure on Eli, and what's he going to be able to do? And I think that you saw sometimes, if in any team, in any conference, but primarily in that NFC East, if you can't run the ball, you're in trouble. And I think that you see teams each week, if they can run the football, and whatever that might be, you're able to stretch the field a little bit to open up the running game. But if you become one-dimensional, it's lights out. And I don't care if you're the best team in that league or the worst team. That week, if your game plan and it shuts you down and you're going one-dimensional, you're not going to win in the NFL, because we know there's like 4 or 5 really, really good teams in each conference, and the rest of them are all That's why 2-3 weeks to go in the end of the season, 90% of the teams still have a shot to make the playoffs. So there's not much difference in those middle teams, as you were just talking about. So I agree with you 100%.
Let me leave you with this, and I know we'll talk a lot more during the summer and the football season. So you got to see Montana close up. And I'm sure, now obviously you were, Marino already left to go to the NFL when you were at Pitt, but you watch Brady. We always have it's bar talk, right? Guys having a couple beers, talking back and forth. You can't go wrong with either one. But if you had it, right, if you had 80 yards to go with no time, you know exactly where I'm going. Who you taking, Brady or Montana?
Oh my gosh. I'm not a Brady hater. The more I see him, and here's why I guess my initial thought would be I love Joe, and I've seen him just do so many things. I think I probably would go with Joe, but why I respect Brady so much is because he's had to do it with more moving parts, and also they know that he's going to go back in the shotgun and throw the ball 30, 40 times a game, and still is able to move the football and get the ball delivered. So, it's not like, he's play action. Like a lot of Montana out of that West Coast offense was the, 3 or 5 step drop, semi-roll, play action pass, semi-roll, boom, going to get it in the flat, or hitting Jerry Rice on a quick slant, depending on what coverage you're in. But you had they had the ability to run the football, and sometimes Joe would only throw the ball 25 times a game, 22 times a game. When was the last time Brady? In the snow, he throws the ball 45 times, 50 times a game. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, that's a great question, and you're right. That's bar talk, and I don't think anybody's wrong. But if I had to pick a guy right now, I would say I would go Montana. And just so you know, as you know, in closing up that whole thing about Kansas City and where I'm at right now, is, you know, I'm doing, my company is called Vices. So if you go online, it's www.vices.co, VICIS. I started this company with a guy by the name of Dave Marver a couple years ago, and we have a new helmet that we're bringing to the football world. And one of the guys that have been really influential in helping me get the helmet kicked off is the guy that I told you about, Terry Bradway, and also a guy by the name of Alan Wright. And Alan Wright is the equipment manager at the Chiefs, and Rick Burkholder, who was the old trainer for the Eagles, and he's now out in Kansas City with the Chiefs, and he was my trainer in college. So it's amazing
it's
how
like a 6 degrees of Ozzie over here, right?
What's
6
that?
degrees of Ozzie over here.
It is.
Forget about Kevin Bacon.
We just scratched the surface there, buddy.
You guys, you're not going to be in studio tonight. You guys going to be out and about for the show? Or you'll be in studio?
I don't know. Is that been confirmed?
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't want to put you on the spot. We know one thing.
I think we're in the studio.
All right. So you guys, without putting you on the spot, you guys will be on 7 to 9 tonight, so we can catch you 7 to 9 right here on 97.3. What do you got going on tonight before I let you get out of here?
We're gonna, you know, just like you talked about, we're gonna talk a lot about Eagles, and we're gonna talk about more on the defensive slant. We talked a lot about the offense last week. So we're gonna talk a little bit about the defense and what some of the moves did and how that affects it and what the schemes are, and, you know, really try and get into the nuts and bolts on how the Eagles look and what their strengths are and how a team might attack them. And of course, we're gonna find out and check and see what people think out there, what their record's gonna be. How many wins? What's your over and under this year?
Oh man, I tell you what, that's a dicey game. That's a dicey proposition with me. I get into that right around September or so. I'll tell you this.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not, you know, when the schedule comes out, I get aggravated on the air when people, and this is just me, because you know what they do. They want to go the wins and losses. And you know this. You played the game. It never pans out like that. But there wasn't any difference in my eyes between 5-11 and 7-9 with the 2 wins to close out the year. They listen, if it falls into place, they're a 500 team, and maybe they're scratching and clawing late. But I gotta wait. I gotta wait till September on that, or August.
Okay, well, I agree with you, and I think we're going to talk about that tonight. And it's always fun, like you said. You can talk about football, especially in this area, you know, 24/7. And I think the Eagles, it's always this way, but I think Carson has picked up his game, and I think that we have a guy who is a bona fide NFL quarterback. And I think if you're an Eagle fan, you know, we now have a guy driving the bus for the next 10 to 12 years that really is a legitimate guy and will give you a legitimate shot to win every Sunday. And I think that's critical. And then they went out and they made some of these moves on the outside because their receiving core was absolutely atrocious the last couple of years. I mean, I don't care if you're Montana and Marino, you couldn't get the ball to the outside. There was no separation.
No.
And they've upgraded there. They have a great tight end. They've done some stuff up front, and now they have a little bit of a running game. So, you know, I'm excited to see what they do. I think they have a shot, too. I agree with you.
All right, we look forward to hearing you tonight, you and Joe 79 on 97.3 ESPN FM. Appreciate a couple months, Ozzie. You know we'll talk along the way. Appreciate it, pal. Best of luck with the show.
Anytime, buddy.
All right, you got it. Take care of yourself. All right, you got it. Good stuff there. Wow, that's, you know, you always talk about the NFL coaching tree, right, and the Kevin Bacon tree. You might have the 6 degrees of Ozzie.